What? Hi. Happy
Hi.
Sunday. What's going on?
Nothing. It's
It was
the weather's nice. What?
it was sunny 10 seconds ago, and now it's all gone. It's all gone,
Oh,
and it's super windy here. I haven't been
oh.
outside today because I was gonna go for a walk, but then I saw how windy it was, and I was like, so I know I was like
Yeah,
super grouchy about that.
it's breezy here and it's getting cloudier. It's been a nice day today. It's been the upper 40s. It was sunny most of the morning, but it's supposed to
Nice.
snow here tomorrow. So I did go for a
Uh,
walk.
I'm super excited because I bought myself a bright orange reflective sweatshirt because it gets dark here at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon now. So I can actually go out and safely walk in the dusk hours. So, which
I
is
have
nice.
a neon orange hat because it's hunting season here, and there's literally 20 hunting blinds on my walk. So I don't want to get
Try.
mistaken for a deer.
No, you don't. Oh yeah. And so yeah, I bought myself that and I bought myself a green reflective hat too. So
Ooh.
I will be the ugliest walker in Polk County, Wisconsin. Super excited about that.
That's quite a feat, Jenny.
I think it is too. I think it is too. So I'm pretty excited about that. I was gonna say something else really profound too, but then I forgot. So never mind.
Must have been a lie.
Must have been a lie. That's right, Ad. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's that time of year. I'm kind of counting down the days to the solstice because then, even though it's the darkest day of the year, you kind of start back up on the uptick. So I'm super jazzed about that. I'm like, it's only about 3 weeks to the solstice. Yay!
Yay. I
So
was gonna say my chickens just finished molting, and they're definitely not gonna lay eggs until after the solstice because they're like, we've been out of the habit for about 6 weeks now. It's dark all the time. I think we'll do nothing.
I think we'll do nothing, and you're going to like it. Look, Lori's here.
Mhm.
Hi, Lori. What is up? I
Hi,
was just
Lori.
thinking about you, Lori. I hope you had a really good Thanksgiving. I hope it was really fun because it was just you guys this year. So that's pretty cool, I think.
Mhm.
So, oh, so yeah, we Joe and I we had Thanksgiving. We ordered from Cub, and we accidentally got a 10-pound turkey out of the deal because by the time we got to pick up on Wednesday, they didn't have any more turkey breasts, which we originally ordered. So they gave us a pre-cooked 10-pound turkey. So we're having turkey enchiladas tonight. Yep, we're having turkey soup on Monday, turkey enchiladas tonight. We had turkey and eggs this morning. A frozen turkey. I'm gonna make a spicy turkey soup.
Nice. It's
Yes.
turkey time.
It is. It's going to be like it's like we're having an official turkey week. So we're going to celebrate turkey by eating all of it.
Hey, turkey fricassee.
That's right.
Yay, turkey.
Um, yes, Lori, holy turkey indeed. So yeah, what else was I going to do with that turkey? Like I said, I froze some for later because there's a lot of you don't think a 10-pound turkey is that big until you really get to carving on it. And I carved that thing down, and the wolves would have been proud of the work I did on that carcass. Look out! So there's that. So yay for me.
Good job.
Yep. So, and what did you guys
Oh,
do?
turkey
You guys
sandwiches.
That's right. Turkey. Oh, turkey sandwiches, open face with gravy. So, Lori wants to know if you got a haircut, Ann.
I didn't. I was on a walk and I had my orange hat on so I wouldn't get shot by deer hunters, and it flattened my helmet of hair already. So it's like I barely. It's like this is what I would look like if I was bald and then used a Sharpie to color in where hair should be.
There
So
you
my
go.
head is
Haircut
not
for
too
women.
badly shaped. I don't have a point or anything, so that's good.
That's
But
good.
yeah, so no haircut, just it's super flat.
Just pressed down. I am freshly showered, so my hair looks, pretty much amazing. Yeah, not really.
Feels pretty
I
much
thought
amazing.
I better tidy myself before our broadcast today because I'd like to look my best. So,
Well, I don't want people thinking that I'm like severely depressed, like, oh, she's not even physically taking care of herself anymore.
you're like, I'm fine. I'm fine. Lori says, second Sharpie Gate. It is Sharpie Gate dose. So funny.
Uh,
Yeah, let me see. I would say that the good news is the weather has been really good. It's been warm,
mhm,
so it's warm enough still to go outside and not
mhm.
like severely frostbite. So that's been really good. And I was looking at the Weather Channel yesterday, and they were saying we're going to be trending warmer over the next 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm cool with that. And there's no snow in our forecast for the next 10 days. I'm like, I'm cool with that too. So That's why I bought my neon orange sweatshirt so I could go outside, because that really is a difference maker right now. It's just being outside. We had a few days last week where it was super overcast and misty, and then the sun finally came out on Friday, and I was like, thank God.
At one point, I was on my walk and I just stopped and I was like, like how they have movie, where they're like standing in the rain and they're like being baptized by the rain and in their clothes. And I was like, it was for me, it was the sun. I was like, oh, and then I look over and there's the sandhill crane giving me the evil eye. And I'm like, sun's out, sun. Okay, I'm going.
Stop judging me. So
exactly.
So a couple weeks ago, during the week, there was a webinar from Rolf Peterson, who is the official wolf expert. And you were doing what crappy movie were you watching instead of watching the webinar, Anne?
I can't remember. It was so terrible. Oh, maybe it was Battle Los Angeles. That's what it was. It was Battle Los Angeles.
That's right.
And I'm embarrassed that I watched the entire film and it was terrible. 2 words for you. No, 3 words for you. Aaron Eckhart monologues.
Wow.
Bad. Yeah. And there were 2 of them. So,
I will say this about Aaron Eckhart, though. He's the same in every movie, which is astonishingly awesome.
He's very consistent. You know what
you're getting with Aaron Eckhart. There's no surprises. It's like, it's Aaron Eckhart. Again.
He's consistent. So if you want to see a movie from 2011 about the destruction of Lost, if you want to see a movie that Michael Bay turned down, and the guy that did all the destruction movies like Independence Day and
yeah,
if you want to see the movie that they both turned down that was written for both of them, then you'll want to see this movie.
Perfect. Right now, Joe is in the living room watching The Expendables, and his review of The Expendables is like, there's always a bigger gun. Just when you think that somebody brought out a bigger gun, here comes a bigger gun. So I'm like, there you go. I watched the first probably 15 or 20 minutes of it, and I was like, yeah.
You got further along than I did.
I'm like, I got to go wash my toilet now. So, yeah.
I'm late for my nap.
And the thing is, I am not opposed to any action movie. I like a good action movie, but I just couldn't do it. It was just like, so, oh, look, Betty's back. Hi, Betty. She's cold now. She's going to eat and go back to her nap. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to shut the door. I'll be right back.
Oh. Jenny has her door open so her cats can go in and out at will, because that's what the cats like. And we want to do what the cats like.
Yes. So anyway, I should probably get back on topic. Anyway.
Me too.
So really cool webinar. Rolf Peterson is, he basically, he's not in charge of the project anymore, but he's still pretty much the face and the voice and the resident expert on the Wolves and Moose project study. What? You just came in. Hang on, I gotta let the cat back out.
Cats are like, we like to do what the cats like.
She had like 3 bites of food and then she wanted to go back out right away. So I can't say no to her because she's in charge. So anyway, long story short, Rolf Peterson gave about an hour-long live webinar, kind of on the current situation with the wolf population. He basically talked a little bit about the wolf reintroduction at Isle Royale. And so then Anne and I got to talking about it, and we thought it would be kind of cool to do a little talk today on the general study, the wolf moose study that's been going on Isle Royale since 1958. So that's what we're talking about today.
Yay.
Which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, we thought we'd better get back to some smart stuff because we did a lot of dumb stuff for a while, mostly movie reviews because they're amazing, because movies are fun. Anyway, we thought we would do, so last week we did something smart, so we're doing something smart again this week, and then we'll get back to doing dumb stuff. Don't you worry, you guys. Plenty of dumb out there. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just get this started and do this thing where I add stuff to the stream and go into present mode. And there it is. Okay.
Cool.
It is cool. I'm going to go ahead and take our brand off too, so that it's a little bit less busy back there. Oh, that's nice.
Very good.
So yeah, so this is it's a project that's been going on for a number of years, and it's a really cool. Oh, wait, I just turned it back on. I didn't mean to do that. It's a really cool thing. So let's talk a little bit about what this is first. It's the longest continuous study of the interaction between wolves and moose. It was started on Isle Royale in 1958, and it's ecologist Durward Allen is kind of credited. There's another one, I can't think of his name, another scientist who's also credited with a graduate study of it. I can't think of his name. I'll look it up in a minute because I want to give him due credit as well. It's also really, this is also the longest study of predator-prey relationships in the world. So the study was started, and I thought this was the really interesting thing because, you and I, Ann, live in this world where wolves are not stigmatized the way they were 70 or 80 years ago. Don't get me wrong. There's still plenty of hate for wolves, especially in northern Minnesota, Wyoming with ranchers, northern Michigan. There's still a lot of angst when it comes to wolves. But this was basically started as a study at the time when this was started back in the 40s and 50s. Wolves were very much endangered in the United States. And this study was they thought this would be a good way to start educating people on what wolves are really like, their predation patterns, and kind of busting through some of the mythology that people had about wolves being evil, wolves being vindictive, these things, bloodthirsty. Yes, all of this mythology that followed wolves. And it was a way to sort of slow eradication efforts because wolves were being eradicated at a really alarming rate at that time. And again, that eradication driven by just this historical hatred of wolves. So that's what it is. As far as where is it, it's being done on Isle Royale National Park. And again, we've actually talked quite a bit about Isle Royale, which is in northern Lake Superior, about 18 miles off the coast of Minnesota and Canada, about 56 miles from the coast of the UP of Michigan. And even though Isle Royale is a Michigan park, it's much closer to Minnesota and Canada. The park itself, you guys, is the Big Island, which is about 45 miles long, about 9 miles wide. And it includes 400 or so smaller islands. And then the park itself extends about 4 to 5 miles beyond the shores of the main island. So if we're looking at a picture, you can see that I have a red circle around Isle Royale. And as you can see it, though it sits fairly close to Minnesota and Canada, it's still considered within the Michigan boundaries for Lake Superior. So good job, Michigan.
Yay! I was going to say, yay!
High-fiving Michigan's mitten. I just did that because that's what you can do.
It's the coolest thing.
Cool. It is. So as far as who's leading the study, the Wolf Moose Project is a nonprofit. It's run essentially with the support of Michigan Technological University, which is in Houghton, Michigan. It's also run with money from the National Science Foundation and with assistance, though I don't think the National Park Service donates money to it. They do lend support because it's taking place on a national park. Like I said, as far as the particulars, Rolf Peterson, he's a retired professor at Michigan Tech. He's essentially the face of the project and has done extensive writing about the wolf moose population. The current team leader of the project is a gentleman by the name of John Vukotic. I'm sure I'm not saying that right. And he is again a professor at Michigan Tech, an ecologist. I think that's his wife Leah underneath there. Leah Vukotic leads logistics personnel, and then Candy Peterson, field assistants, logistics, and education. So again, a lot of different people that are, and this is just the four of the, I would say, the faces of the project, but there are dozens of others that work within this, even hundreds of others that throughout this 60 years have worked on this project and contributed to its success. The reason that this project is so cool is because of the amazing amount of learning, not just about the wolves and the moose, but just the fact that this has been this ongoing study. This is kind of rare. It's like I said, it's the longest study of its kind anywhere on the planet. Wolves and moose are just generally cool. What's cool about this study, and this is again, in being the science nerd that I am, and one of the reasons I love science so much, is that it raises as many questions as it answers. And when you're working scientifically, when you're thinking scientifically, it's always about the questions that we're asking. If we don't ask questions, we don't get answers. And what's cool about this study is that in trying to find answers, they have found more questions, which lead to more answers. So that's one of the reasons that I love this so much. And in researching this project, one of the things I learned was a lot of the things that they were not expecting to find that they found. And that's what this next bullet, it's offered. This study itself has offered these excellent and unexpected insights. When they first started this study, this was very much about studying the interaction between wolf and moose. And what they have found is that there were no easy answers. They thought they had an idea of what they were going to find and learn, and it's turned out to be really different. So in terms of, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second, but in terms of the unexpected insights is that they're learning that the ticks on Isle Royale, they're essentially a deer tick. Is it a deer tick? I'm pretty sure it is. Let me double check
Pretty sure
that.
it's a deer tick.
Yeah. I'm just going to go with that. And the moose tick. It's actually called a moose tick.
Okay.
Okay. And that these ticks, they are as influential on the population as wolves are. And they're learning a lot about these ticks, and just that on any given day, a moose might be carrying 4,000 ticks on it. And that, the effect that this has on the moose has been fairly devastating, because you've got, these moose end up giving, giant, enormous amounts of blood to these ticks on a daily basis throughout, a season. Really interesting. And the long-term effects and the how this promotes starvation within moose populations. That was something that they learned through this study. They learned the effect on climate change, because what they found is that as the climate has gotten warmer, the tick populations have gotten bigger, and they have had a greater effect. So as they have seen it get warmer, and these ticks manage to survive longer, and their populations grow. So it's been a way for them to also study climate change and the effect that it's having on the moose population, the wolf population, the tick population. And of course, climate has played a huge role in the ice bridges that have brought wolves back and forth to the island for years, where that is no longer happening. And that, of course, had a huge effect on the wolf population as well. This is one I thought was really interesting. In reading, they talked about by observing the patterns of ravens and the behavior of ravens, and how that affected pack behavior of the wolves, which I thought was super interesting. That wolves, that if we look at many large apex predators, they tend to be somewhat solitary creatures. And so here you have this large apex predator and a wolf. They tend to form packs. And what their observations are leading them to believe is that they form packs in order to preserve the carcasses. So like they might not finish an entire carcass because they need to patrol, or because they just have eaten their fill. And by having packs, they can better preserve those carcasses from predators or from scavengers. And as a result, it becomes a more efficient way. Though they get less food, they can take more of the food, preserve it from things like ravens, which are scavengers, and then they have to hunt less, which I thought was really an interesting idea. Is that because of the behavior of scavengers, it's changed the behavior and the mentality of wolves themselves, moving to a more pack and less solitary. Which again, I'm like, how about that? This study has given them insights into how isolation affects moose size. They're seeing that the population of moose is getting smaller, like the actual size of the moose is getting smaller. They've seen that change over the past 50 or 60 years, which I thought was really interesting, because in the webinar, they talked about the wolf pack from the Michopicoten Island in, was that Lake Superior? Lake Superior, yeah, on the other side of Lake Superior. And that wolf pack tends to be very large. And so you have these isolated wolves that got bigger on that island, and you have this wolf or this moose population on Isle Royale that seems to be getting smaller. Interesting. And I think it's one of the things they talked about. They talked about how they will be watching the size of these wolves very closely in the coming years, because they've just done this reintroduction that they started in 2017, 2018. and they're seeing the behavior in these packs that are starting to form amongst the wolves that are currently on the island. And they're watching the size of those very closely because a large number of those wolves came from this island because they were starving and they needed to move them somewhere where they wouldn't starve to death because they ate all the caribou on the island. So, so anyway, that's one of the things. Another cool thing that they're learned about is the kill consumption patterns of wolves, whether they eat, they fully consume their prey versus partial. There's a myth that says that wolves, hunt for sport, or they don't necessarily eat what they're killing. And though they may not entirely eat what they're killing, it very much depends on how much prey is available. They're like any species, including humans, that if we don't have to eat everything, we don't. It's actually easier for them to kill another moose than it is for them to try and scavenge the more difficult parts of the carcass to get to and the less appealing parts of the carcass. So as long as they have abundant food, they don't necessarily eat everything. And that's a behavior that they see throughout the animal world. So it's not just wolves that do that. It's everybody that does that. Isn't that right, Betty? Who only eats half of a rabbit when she kills it and then saves the other half for later.
Or for you.
Or for me. That's true. In the closet, because where else would you keep a rabbit? That half.
A dead rabbit, anyway.
A dead half a rabbit.
Just have fun. She can't get the fridge open.
You can't get the fridge open. So this is the best she can do. So, and then finally, and this was another one that I thought was super awesome, as far as residual things that they have learned, is that wolf teeth or moose teeth can tell us how air pollution has changed. And so they have studied, they've talked about how by looking at what's in the teeth of moose, they've been able to kind of track lead air pollution and mercury air pollution, and they have seen it drop specifically. And it's showing them how effective the Clean Air Act of the 1970 was, because they can look at the teeth of moose pre-Clean Air Act versus those post-clear, and there's clear evidence that shows these dramatic drops in lead and mercury within the teeth of moose, which shows that this policy has been working. Keep doing it. Hooray.
Right. See, it's good.
So those are things, and that's why this study is so cool, is that they set out to learn one thing, and in the process they've learned all of these other things, and they will continue to learn other things. Like one of the things that they're talking about now is they've been able to observe, since they've reintroduced wolves to the island, is the behavior of beavers on the island, and how their populations and how they've changed the waterways on the island, and how it's starting to change back, which I thought was really awesome as well. So, Anne, would you like to talk about what else the study has taught us?
Well, one of the things the study taught us is that one of the assumptions they made when they first started the study was that the wolves and moose population would be a balanced population. It would pretty much be a straight line. The number of wolves and the number of moose would balance each other out and stay balanced. And what they discovered was that that is not how it worked at all. Actually, they're inversely proportional. When you have a lot of, when the moose population would rise, it was usually at the time that the wolf population was at its lowest. When the wolf population would rise, then you would find the moose population was lowering. So they were actually inversely proportional, and that's not what they thought would happen at all. They thought that all predator-prey relationships were actually this balanced sort of relationship, and this demonstrated that most predator-prey relationships are not balanced. There is peaks and valleys that go throughout the if you were to just look at a study for maybe 5 years, you might think, like if you look at the first part of the study, you might think, oh yeah, they're in balance. So it takes years for you to really conclude, how does this relationship work? So I thought that was interesting.
For real. Totally awesome. What else?
What else? Well, we also have that without sufficient wolf predation, moose drastically change both the terrestrial and the aquatic plant environment of the island. So moose are not picky about what they eat. And they actually have, it was interesting because when I watched the webinar that they had video of a moose eating underwater. They managed. That's the coolest thing ever. Yeah, it's the only time they've ever had documentation of a moose eating underwater, and they pretty much just eat what was there. They weren't like picky or looking around for something else. They're just like, shoving it in their mouth. And so the more wolf you have on the island, the more it affects the the plant life. So moose, they prefer aspen and birch. And when they can't get it, then they eat balsam-fir. And balsam-fir trees are not as nutritious. Well, if you have this big population of moose, then you're going to have a decline in this in that type of deciduous tree. So like the aspen and the birch, and that when you have wolves, when you have a sufficient wolf population on the island, then you get a rebound in not just your tree your tree plant population, but aquatic plant population. And so you wouldn't think that predators have an effect on plants since they don't eat plants. And what they're learning is that when you affect a herbivore, when a predator affects an herbivore, then it has an effect on the environment. So, and that's kind of what they're learning with the beaver as well. Another thing that they've learned with this study is how an introduced disease can affect the wolves, which in turn affects the wolf population, and then in turn affects the terrestrial habitat. So in the mid 90s, what was the virus that was?
It was parvo.
Parvo, yes. Yep. Parvo was introduced by a domestic dog onto the island, and it wiped out more than half of the wolf population. And what they saw, and at that time, the wolf population was very high. So they had a lot of wolves, not as many moose, and a more healthy terrestrial ecosystem. But once Parvo came in, it wiped out at least half the wolves very quickly within months. So they got to see that basically the destruction, or the deterioration is probably a better word, of the terrestrial habitat, because there was fewer wolves to eat the moose, and the moose were eating whatever they wanted. So
yes. Well, and that's
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And then I was just going to say how climate change has affected both the health of the moose and the migration of the wolves onto the island. And again, that affects the health of the wolves, because if you don't have a diverse breeding stock, if you're not constantly introducing new genetic material into your wolf population, then you start getting inbreeding. You start getting non-viable pups. You start getting this. We're seeing a lot of spinal deformities in the older generation of wolves. And then, of course, like you talked about with the ticks, moose don't sweat. They can't sweat. So that's one of the reasons why they spend so much time in water. So the hotter it gets, the more ticks affect them, because they live longer, and the harder it is for a moose to keep its body temperature under control.
Yep. And they're seeing this increase in winter ticks amongst the moose populations, and one of the reasons that it's just warmer. Yeah. And to me, if you look at just the overall picture that's been painted in this last 60 years, climate change has affected this more than anything. You have all of these other factors that have, trophic cascade is what he called it in the webinar. Mm-hmm. And that makes perfect sense, is that, this planet is just system upon system working within systems. And if one system starts to change, it literally will affect every system. And that's one of the things that I think is so interesting about this study, is that we can look at these little micro snapshots of what's happening and start to put it together into this much larger picture of how climate change is affecting these systems. And I'm just like, you can yell and scream all you want about climate change, but it's real, and it has the impacts are vast in terms of what's happening. And this is just one example. So
yeah, just one.
Yep. So yeah, I would agree. And I was just thinking of we went to Isle Royale a couple of summers ago. We went for a day trip over on the Windingo side, and we got to take a little ranger talk walk, and they take you into an area that is fenced off and away from where the moose cannot get to the vegetation in that. And it is starkly different than what's just outside of it that's being consumed by the moose. And it's just like, you can't even believe it. It's like, it's really shocking how different the vegetation is from inside that enclosure to outside. So yeah, again, the little things that you don't notice until somebody says, hey, look at this compared to this. And then you go, wow. Indeed. So this is one of the cool things about this particular project, is that they've relied on literally thousands of volunteers over the 60 years to be part of this. So it's relied heavily on the work of volunteers that as collectors of bones, of collectors of teeth, as collectors of data, as observers about what they're seeing amongst neighbors of yes, collectors of poop, of both mostly moose, wolves if they can. There's a spring and summer study. There's also a winter study you can be a part of. Unfortunately, because of COVID right now, they're not, these studies aren't taking place. It didn't take place this year, and it's, you know, next year's study is in jeopardy. The winter study is in jeopardy right now. You know, they're still planning on trying to do a spring summer study this year. It's just going to depend on how things go over the next 6 months or so. But if you're interested, if you want to be a part of this, they offer these week-long Moose Watch expeditions where volunteers, led by somebody who is an expert in both being outdoorsy and in the collection. You collect bones, data, poop, you make observations. You basically get a look at Isle Royale that most people don't ever get a chance to see. You know, you're not, you know, where most people when they come onto the island are sticking to the major trails. You know, you're off-roading, so to speak. And it's a great way to try and learn. And that's something I very much want to do, but I have to get in backpacking shape. So, because they want you to be able to hike 16 miles a day and carry a backpack. And as they said, carry a backpack if that's going to get heavier because you're going to be collecting moose bones and antlers and, you know, whatever else you can find. So anyway, if you'd like to be a part of the project, the website's pretty easy. It's simply called isleroyalewolf.org. And it's a great website. There's a ton of information in there. They take you through the studies that they've done. You can literally get the annual reports for the past, I don't know, 40 years, because each report is a little bit different. That gives you insights. And those are when the National Park Service was trying to decide what to do with the reintroduction, you know, it was these annual reports that they relied on most heavily when it came to making a decision about the reintroduction of the wolves. And so this reintroduction that started in 2018 and is currently taking place is based on the work of this project. And then as they move forward, because they're not entirely sure what they're going to be doing in terms of continuing the reintroduction. Right now, I want to say they're pretty sure there's anywhere from 12 to 15 wolves on the island. There might be more because they think there were pups last year, but you know, this work will continue, and what they do moving forward with this continued reintroduction is going to depend heavily on what this project does, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
imagine using scientific data to make more decisions. Oh, who would have thought?
Wow. I know. So you know, in this time when we are, you know, when science is taking a beating, you know, all I can tell people is that everything that we love and enjoy, the technology we use, the lives we live, the houses we live in, the cars we drive,
the medicines we take,
the food we eat it's all based on this process. And like I tell my students all the time, you know, science is not a thing, it's a process. And, you know, this is again something I'm super passionate about. And what I love about this project is that it is everything that science is. It is patient. You know, science is not fast. That's the other thing that people want it to be now, because we live in this age of Google where everything's fast. The scientific process is not fast. The scientific process answers questions in its own time. Mm-hmm. And it takes as long as it takes until we feel like we have the answers. And that's the way it works. And that's the way it's worked since the time of discovery, from the very first scientists, whoever they were.
You know, it's so funny that people want things to be so fast when it comes to like, well, I can just Google it. It's just super fast. It's right there. I'm like, you know how long it took Google to become Google?
It took a long time.
Exactly. So, you know, what I love about this is that you really have to be, you know, a lot of people think, you know, science is clipboards and taking notes, which it is, but there's a lot of thinking outside of the box when it comes to studies. And it's just, like you said, being patient and being, you know, when we watched the webinar and Ralph Peterson was talking about, you know, the pictures they've managed to collect and the collar data that they've managed to collect and the bits of poop they've managed to collect, and that some ranger just happened to stumble on the bones of one of the wolves, you know, just like the luck and the patience and the willing to sift through the tiniest bit of detritus for clues. You really have to be, if you like puzzles, if you're a puzzle, I tell my students, if you're a puzzle person, if you like a mystery, then research is something that you would want to do, because it's something that you have to, you have to be willing to look under every bush and under every rock and every footprint and every mud puddle. And that's exactly what they do on this island, because it's not like, Duncan's like, well, don't they have cameras? I'm like, yeah, but it's a big island and you have to know where the wolves are going. So, maybe they'll put a camera where they know they've seen wolves, but you can't just put 100 cameras and expect to find out a bunch of information, because you may never have a wolf walk by that camera,
Right. Yeah. And again, you have to think about
of that.
That you need people to man those cameras and maintain them and go get them. And again, if you've never been to Isle Royale, the trails are great, but once you get off trail, God, it's dense and thick and difficult. And you'll have, you're going to be in areas where you're in these low, wet, swampy, sticky, nasty areas. And to be able to navigate that is, again, and that's why they have relied so heavily on volunteers, because they do need an army of people to collect this data. And the good news is people are excited to do it, they want to be part of this process, because they understand that this is something really unique and special.
Right. Because when you find that little bit of, wolf hair on that tree bark, you're like, because then a wolf has been by here, well, then let's look for other stuff here, or maybe this is where we put a camera,
camera.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe this is where we fly by, to see if we can get. So it's just like, I find that so, it's really, little bits.
Yes. I agree. Yeah, just take the time to observe something and then start to make inferences about what that means.
Right.
And that's one of the skills we try to teach our students, is that okay, now you've seen this, and now what does it mean? Well, I think it means this. Well, why do you think that? Because of this.
Why do you think that? Okay. Yeah. And then it's like, and then be willing to be open enough to realize that maybe your inference is wrong. That's another thing. That's so hard. You're like, well, I've made this conclusion. It must be right based on what I found. I must be right. And then, have that kind of child's mind that it's, this is liquid. It's not solid. It's always flowing and moving. So,
well, and that's one of the things that I do observe in my students. It's this terror. They're so afraid to be wrong. I'm like, science is wrong all the time. And like I tell my students, I'm like, we have to be wrong so that we can learn to be right. And being wrong is one of the most important parts of science. Is like, and that's how you're like, well, I thought it was this, but it didn't turn out to be this. And and like I said, when they started this wolf moose study, they had some ideas in their head about how they thought this was going to go. And it turned out they were wrong. The data showed them something completely different. And that's the thing. And like, if you look, I'm going to go ahead and share this real quick. Because I think this is a really interesting, if I can find it, let me see, is this the page? Yes, it is the page. Or I'm going to share a different screen real quick. I'm going to share this one because I really think this is a neat thing. I want this one. All right, can we see that? Yeah, it's this, if we look at, this is about the project overview, and I love this little thing because it shows about every 5 years what's happening with the wolves are in blue, the moose are in kind of this yellow color down here at the bottom. And it really shows some interesting trends that they were not expecting. And I really love this because, like you said, Ann, you would think that it was kind of a straight line, which they kind of thought it was at the beginning of the study. And then as the study has progressed, they have noticed things that they were not expecting. They've seen wolf populations collapse. They have seen moose populations collapse. They've seen moose populations emerge. They've seen wolf populations re-emerge. And so, again, things that they did not expect, but that's where the really good learning comes in. And that's what people often forget about science is that, yes, it's wrong, but what did we learn from being wrong? We learned a ton. So,
yeah. So there you go.
There you go. The Wolf and Moose study. Again, the Wolf and Moose project. It's again, you guys, if you're interested, it's isleroyalewolf.org. I'll go ahead and put that up here real quick so that you can see it. Hang on. Did I spell that right? Oh, yeah, I totally spelled it right. Okay, good. Yeah. So there it is. If you're interested, that's the website you want to go to because it's super awesome. IsleRoyalWolf.org. Lots of cool information there. Yet more good reasons to go see the greatest national park in America. Or don't, because, don't go there.
Yeah.
Fine, go
I
there.
won't see it.
So yeah, there you go. That's our talk today. We talked for 40 minutes about smart stuff. Aren't you feeling smarter already?
I feel smarter already.
You should, because you are smart. So there.
Oh, you are too.
Very good. So anyway, we'll be back next weekend about stuff. I don't know. I kind of feel like we need to bring Chip back.
I think so too.
I think
we need to ask him what he's watching on TV.
Yes, because I'm like we're watching Fargo right now, but we're just about ready to start season 4, and then we're gonna finish it, and then I don't know what to watch after that. And sometimes I get confused because there's so much stuff. So there.
Yeah, there you go. We Great British Bake Off, Fargo. Oh, we've been watching the Queen's Gambit.
Oh, the chess one. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Really good. But the actress, and I never know the actresses' names because I'm not Chip or my husband who always knows all of their names. But anyway, I'm kind of a fan of this actress right now who plays the lead, and she was in both the Glass and the Shattered movie, the M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I haven't seen either of those. So.
Oh yeah, well, she's young and very attractive, and she's narrow window. If she can expand it, good for her, girl. But she's doing a lot right now, and I enjoy her a lot. So that's been a very good. Of course, the story itself is fascinating, but yeah,
nice.
So enjoying that, and then a number of crappy movies. So
Yes. Well, then there's like an endless supply of crappy movies for sure. But yeah. So yeah, you guys, next weekend we're going to try to have entertainment expert Chip Bailey back with us. We'll see if he wants to join us because he's worth it. He's worth it.
He's totally worth it. He's worth it. And we should know what we should watch. In fact, maybe we should just ask him, Chip, what's the top 10 things we should be watching right now?
Chip, what should we be watching? We're going to find out the answers from you next week, Chip, just so you know, even though we haven't spoken to you and you don't know you're doing this yet, but you're gonna. Yeah.
You're gonna. And you're gonna love it.
Hey, if somebody out there sees Chip, tell him he's on next week. Okay, good.
All right, cool.
Me to your advantage. All right, guys. Have a great week. Happy Sunday. Have a good week. I hope everybody's coming out of their Thanksgiving coma and is ready for a whole new week. So, yay! All right, Ann Brothers. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Jenny Brothers. Bye.
Bye.